Soulreign. Today I've got the captain. You know it. It's Shawn Kostiuk. And Shawn is a multi talented hypnotherapist because you practice clinical as well as stage, you do executive coaching, and currently you're an educator who does a lot of public speaking. It is a huge list of talents that you've got.
And then you
Welcome to
throw in
today.
podcasting and this and that and the other thing, and all of a sudden you realize you're wearing a large stack of hats.
They
And
don't call you captain for nothing.
well, when you're responsible for the ship, you know, there, get rid of all the extras. Okay, there we go. Should have done that
Yeah.
before. Sorry. Yeah, when you're responsible for the ship, you have to make sure things run and the people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So
Well, that's kind of it. I mean, usually you're the guy behind the scenes, you're the one doing the tech, you're the one hosting the guests, and today you are a guest, and so it's a weird kind of shift for weird kind of
that's
shift
right,
for
because
you.
I'm the one that's used to having 25 windows open, making sure everybody's looking where they're supposed to be looking, and no, you're not supposed to post it there. And yeah, meanwhile, nobody knows exactly what I do because it's all behind the scenes. So
That's right. The man that keeps the motor running. So, what brought you into the world of hypnosis? Because currently you're an educator and they can be kind of a stretch.
yep, I would go all the way back to growing up in rural Saskatchewan. And because you know where Saskatchewan is, there's not a lot to do the minute you leave any particular settlement. Let's put it
I've
that way.
made that
It-
Trans Canada drive. I did it once. I will never do it again.
well, I mean, you made it through Saskatchewan. That was the best part of it, I'm sure, because you could see everything.
It's
We, we,
flat.
we
It's
have we have
incredibly
a joke
flat.
here. We have a joke here. Yeah, people say, "Oh, it's flat." Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. But you know why? Because we pushed all the mountains west because we didn't want to keep driving around them. They were blocking our view.
Fair enough, but I don't think BC is complaining. They're just monetizing it.
Yeah, and they're doing what they can. There's no question. Uh, so yeah, once you get outside of any populated area, there really isn't a whole lot to do.
Mhm.
Uh, my where I grew up, West Park was just outside of Battleford, across the river. Like it was a good 15-minute drive to get back into either of the towns and do anything. So fortunately for us, we had a satellite dish. Remember the big 10-foot
Yeah.
dishes that it took an hour to swing around 10 degrees or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and the Sci-Fi Channel was one of those wonderful channels that was brand new, and it actually was spelled correctly back in the day. It was
Yeah.
SCI dash FI. It wasn't what it SYFY like it is now, unless they've gone back to their roots. I don't know. I know MTV hasn't, so that's a different story.
Yeah.
But on the show, of course, there was all kinds of opportunity to be exposed to this thing, and in various forms, and in the traditional media sense of it being absolute mind control. And you think this is
Oh,
kind of cool. If I could do that, I
yeah.
could control the world.
Those
Now,
two do not kind of come together for me. When I think of sci-fi, I do not think of hypnosis. So,
oh
do
well,
you have
think
something
think
in
about think
specific?
about all the times that somebody was controlled by another entity, or
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and
Fair.
you start looking at it through that lens. All the chemicals that they were experimenting with in the 70s, and all of a sudden somebody creates a mind control serum or some goofy thing like that. Cartoons were just as bad. But that was kind of the first experience thinking, okay, this is kind of cool. And again, smaller center, not that many books in the library. So it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna wait for university. When I got to university, oh, look at all these books. And it was everything from Orman McGill's, you know,
Wow.
volume that was like, half a mile wide,
Yeah.
all the way through. And it was actual real information. And that's when I first understood, okay, this that I saw is not what this is, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was really where things took off, was in university.
And so there's the captain origin story.
Yep.
Where did you go to university, by the way?
The University of Saskatchewan.
Okay.
I went there twice, and I attended the University of Regina remotely once. don't tell my work colleague, because I keep telling them that the U of S is still far better than the University of Regina. So um, just one of those rivalries that we have here in Saskatchewan. What can I say?
My options were Bishop University in Quebec or McGill.
Yeah,
I
McGill.
just ejected out. It's like, that's not really the route I want to go anyway.
And as an educator, I will say this: it's not for everybody,
No.
and it was never meant to be for everybody. And
Yeah.
education is starting to realize that there are different pathways to get students through high school and out into the workforce. So fortunately, they're working at it. It does, it does take a little out of the box thinking, if you will, to make things happen. But fortunately, they're on it. So
Well, when I began the process of dropping out of college or CJEP in Quebec, I had one teacher actually, he was about to stop me and he said, you know what? This probably isn't helpful. You already know what you need. You know this isn't it. He was sociology. Dear old Norm. God, I loved that man. I did so well in all his classes and all the psych classes, but the rest of it really just wasn't for me. And there wasn't a label of hypnosis training. There wasn't a label of coach. Those things weren't available as programs. And so they just didn't fit with what I really knew I needed to be. And I had a lot of things to gear me towards where I am now.
yeah,
So it's nice to hear that.
Yeah, well, and truthfully, I didn't take the most direct path either. Um, I made it into the College of Arts and Science. Went to university actually with my aunt, who was 3 years older than me, 3.5.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so she was in her 4th year, and I was in my 1st year, and so yeah, it was a year of that, and then a couple of years on my own, and come out with an 3-year arts degree. And realized that there wasn't a whole lot there to do with an arts degree. Like you said, coaching wasn't the thing yet, and hypnotist was just a passing interest still at that point. So had I been a little more adventurous, I probably would have gone the route of being a hypnotist, but applied to the College of Education thinking, okay, well, still have to feed myself, and teaching isn't a bad thing. I used to work at McDonald's with all the kids anyway, so it's not a real stretch, and I didn't get in.
Do your students know what you do within hypnosis and hypnotherapy? Do they get
Oh,
little samples
they ask
of
all the
it?
time. Once they find out that I'm a hypnotist, I walk into it could be any high school or middle years class. And if the teacher happens to mention that I'm a hypnotist, they right away, well, hypnotize me, hypnotize. And it's like, okay, how do you take control of a situation when you've got 30 kids all screaming, hypnotize me? You ask a question. Yeah. How do you know you're not hypnotized already?
And then they're quiet because they're like, wait a minute.
Because now, exactly. That's exactly what I get. It's like, what? They don't expect that sort of a question, right? Like questions they can handle, but that kind of a question, it's like, oh, wait a minute, now I got to check myself. Mm-hmm. And we know, because hypnosis kind of it flows through that that one nice neat little state. And I'll ask them, I said, hey, does anybody know exactly the moment you fall asleep? Well, no. Well, why not? Because there's a point where your conscious mind disengages from your unconscious mind. Guess where that is? My playground.
That's right. In your playground, did you start clinical or did you start stage? Go ahead and take your time.
I definitely started clinical. I wanted to make sure that I knew my stuff. And I mean, reading all the books in university is one thing. You can get knowledge there, but it's never a bad idea to double check that you actually. There's Brian.
There's trouble.
Oh yes.
There goes
don't I know it every Tuesday night. My co-host with the most. Yes, the best way to make sure that you understand something either is to A, teach it, which I wasn't prepared to do, or B, double check that you've got that knowledge. And so I was looking for any course, and this would be back in 2012,
Mhm.
before online was really a thing.
Yeah.
There were a couple that had some online courses. They were kind of experimenting, but you still needed to do a practicum somewhere else. And there was no way I was giving up the job that I had, because I was the manager of information services for the school division here in this part of Saskatchewan. And there was just no way to pick up and move a family for 6 or 8 months, take a leave of absence, and then come back and pick up right where I left off. So
Yeah.
there was one, it was still in print course, so a couple of 3-inch binders later, yeah, I got my certificates. They're hanging up on the wall there, from the American School of Hypnosis and Clinical Hypnotherapy, and a certification of hypnotherapy from the American International.
They're on the
Blair.
wrong side of the camera, my friend.
Yeah, I know. Well, I see. I used to have the desk turned that way, so you could kind of see them up in the corner, but just have moved them to this side of the wall. Um, Better light coming through here. Except now, because it's cloudy outside, because we're waiting on a storm. But yeah, from there it was okay. Anything that I could do to better my skill, short certificate courses. Don't underestimate micro learning, folks. I will say this. And Google is already proving it, because they just released a product that pretty much will let you micro learn anything that you want. Actually, two of them. And I don't like Google. Anybody who knows me knows that I detest Google. I think um, they've made technology user friendly, but in doing so, they've really um, taken some of the actual machine learning, like why is it thinking this, away from people. So, but anyway, I digress. Notebook LM.
I
You
think,
can upload
as
all your
does Soul.
documents, and it will actually make a podcast for you. Again,
Mhm.
you'll still want to double check the facts and make sure they got things right. But
Yeah.
and then the other one is just released, and I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it is basically a teach me anything AI. You can upload anything there, and it will teach it to you, in your learning style. So, so when you have that kind of power unto yourself, learning becomes democratized.
Mhm.
How do you
Brian says,
maintain
at
standards?
least it's
Well,
not
hope,
iPhone. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. How do you maintain standards? Well, check yourself.
But it could be said with any form of technology, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
The minute the rotary phones went away, ask me if I can remember a phone number. No, I'm
You
lucky
know
if I
what?
remember my own most days. Never mind.
Ask a student.
Yeah.
If you ask us, what's a telephone? We'll do this because
Yeah.
we remember the receiver. Kids do this
That's right.
because they only know the straight up phones. You
Yeah.
may find the odd one that does this because they saw the old
Modeled.
telephone in their grandma's
Yeah.
house or something like that. But uh, by and large, they don't. They have a completely different worldview to what it is that we have. And we get down on them for certain things, but in a technological world, they can thrive
Yeah.
if we let them.
Yeah. We have to embrace that things are going to look very different. And maybe that's
Um,
because that's the more effective way to do it.
I often argue with other teachers about what are we teaching them. We're
Mm-hmm.
teaching them what we need to what we know they need to know. I said, well, how do we know that?
Yeah.
How do you know what's going to happen 5 years from now? You know, reading, writing may become pictographs in 5 years. I mean,
Yeah.
the world changes, and now with the acceleration of AI, it will change even faster. So
And already they don't read. Already it's been phased out. You can just plug in an app, let it know what book you're looking at, or upload your PDF, and it'll read it for you.
yep.
And so they're looking for these
And in
ways
a
of
really nice
thriving.
voice now too. I mean, some of the voices
Mhm.
that they have now are they're really, really
Yeah,
actually real world voices. They're not the
I
older
know.
static.
I've had Gwyneth Paltrow read me manuals. It's been great. That's not to say I don't go back and highlight some things. I'm still old, you know. I still have a highlighter, but it's nice to not have to overthink it. And if I need to, she'll repeat it. And so, as you began clinical, what were some of the first things that you really enjoyed in that process?
Well, the very first thing, of course, was freaking people out. I still have people to this day that are much taller than you and I are.
That's
You know,
that's most people.
think Dan Goyette height, um,
Yeah.
and absolutely will not look me in the eye because, of course, we have magical powers in our eyes. You know,
Oh.
and I said, okay, I'll just watch for you in the hallway so you don't, walk over me or something like that. There, what I enjoy about it is dispelling the myth
Mhm.
that this is not some freaky, um, anti-biblical, you know, anti-religious, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is a natural process that we're using to help you make whatever change it is that you want to make in
Yeah.
such a way that it actually sticks. People ask, well, how long does hypnosis last? Well, I don't know. How long do you need it to last?
Mhm.
If you're changing the habit from smoking to non-smoking, how long do you need the hypnosis to last before you are a non-smoker?
I like the
You know,
simplicity sometimes.
yep.
It's the way that we can get out of our own way that is just the biggest surprise to me. I had a really great session just last week. And even being a hypnotist, like it still astounds me sometimes the results that can happen. And so that night after the session was done, I didn't think a thing about it. I didn't think about the goal. I didn't think about anything. I just enjoyed my evening. The next day, there I was doing all the things I wanted to do. And of course, I had to reach out and let my friend know and say, hey, thank you for being a badass. This is great. I didn't even think about it. And I'm full productivity today. Thank you.
Yep.
That was exactly what I needed. But it was super simple. Like the session was less than half an hour.
I like what Scott King, we used to have a meeting called the Hypno Hustle
Yeah.
Sunday nights, and in the group we always talked about the nature of hypnosis, the business of hypnosis, and whatnot. And Scott always made this point. He said, we really sell catharsis.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is the end. Boom, we'll blow it up, and here's the change that comes out of it. And that has always kind of stuck with me as a, if there's any one root metaphor for being a hypnotist, especially if you're working on the clinical side, is
Yeah.
that your clients are looking for that change. And that change, I don't care how much of a backstory, if you think about it from a building perspective, how many floors are there on that building, right? There's the history that they think that they know, there's what actually has happened, there's layers to everything, but you can collapse that whole building if you blow up the right support beam.
Yeah.
And then out of the rubble, you can clear that away and build something new.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many different ways around it. And these days, the fun thing is you can start clinical or you can start stage and end up moving your way to clinical. Like there's no right or wrong way to learn it. I started clinical, but I'm kind of having regret that I haven't done more stage, that I haven't done more entertainment hypnosis because there's a whole other skill set that can develop there. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. And Brian will attest to this. Being a stage guy himself as well. The I don't necessarily see them as two separate skill sets.
Hmm.
They're very. If you think of a Venn diagram, I don't have a piece
Yeah.
of paper and a pen here to draw on, but if you think of a Venn diagram, two circles that kind of intersect and overlap, there
Yeah.
are a number of skills that overlap, and then there's skills that kind of specialize on either side.
Yeah.
Um, the resistant client that really you know, doesn't think that they want hypnosis, blah blah blah. They want to hire you, then but
Yeah.
if they still have this apprehension, you need a very quick way to get past their gatekeeper and get in to do the work. That's where a
Yeah.
stage hypnosis technique can come in quite handy. I had a lady that I was talking with, and this is actually kind of a funny story. But when I first started, I was just, kind of sort of advertising a little bit, and this lady calls me up and says, "Yeah, I'm skeptical, blah 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 blah." And it just so happened. I said, "Well, where are you?" She said, "Well, I'm in Regina, which is our capital city. So home of the CFL Grey Cup champion Rough Riders." But anyway, um, I said, "Well, that's convenient. Where in Regina are you? Because I'm in Regina. I'm in for meetings." She says, "Well, I'm blah blah blah." I said, "Really? You're right around the corner. I'm in this particular hotel convention center." "Really?" I said, "Yeah. Why don't you come over for a cup of coffee and we'll talk about it." So we talked. We didn't really do anything other than she asked 1,001 questions and I had 1,001 answers, and we left it at that. A couple months later, she calls me again. She says, "Okay, show me this works." I said, "Okay," and not being a business mind, thinking I should get some money out of this. I said, "Okay, no problem." So uh, we tried it, and she was surprised. She was so surprised because she said that I really don't think. And I said, "Well, just focus on this spot here," and boom, she was out in like 45 seconds. And Yeah, so we did a couple of sessions together, and she went from um, being a person who was second guessing herself. She couldn't figure out why,
Yeah.
and it was because she didn't want to let her husband down. And once that
Mhm.
bubble popped, now she is a financial advisor and very wealthy and having the time of her life, traveling, talking, speaking, doing all the things that she wanted to do because we popped
Yeah.
one bubble.
Yeah. I think I was a little bit lucky. I think I got a bit more of a blend than maybe some clinical have. So I had Linda Bennett, who was wonderful about also teaching phenomenon. She was great at that. And I think that phenomenon, when you're experiencing yourself experiencing something that you don't understand how or why that's happening, but it's
It's
happening.
always it's always freaky the first time, right?
Yeah.
Like the number one thing I get is, "But I heard you the whole time."
Yeah.
And on the
Good thing.
stage, it's like, "Okay," and the show is over, take a bow, and they're looking at me like, "What the hell? What do you mean the show is over? We just got here." And I
Yeah.
showed them my watch. "You've been up here for an hour." "No way." It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, those hypnotic uh uh phenomena, they're very convincing after the fact. Like when you sit down and you start analyzing and you realize, "Oh, wait a minute, I was under." I had one guy, my very first show, and he just went straight down to the floor. He was done. He was not moving. He just sat in his chair like this for the entire show.
Esdale,
Uh,
did you
yeah,
just
oh
go
yeah,
all the way up?
just yeah. I'm sure a combination of Esdale and because it was a theater show, and they did
Yeah.
they did have a few before the show.
I've only
Anyway,
had one person do that on me, and we both know him. It's
okay,
Mike Brody. I went to give him a session, and he's stage. I'm not. And so the minute I start doing progressive muscle relaxation, he's just all the way dead. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
don't clinical a stage hypnotist.
yeah.
Got it.
The only other hypnotist that I know that
Yeah.
is Asdale is actually Lisa. Um, she, we talk about that, and when we were working in Hypno Hustle, she would be coaching after the fact. Is that with people that are Asdale, you can't be nice. You have to be direct. You have to be forceful,
Yeah.
and you have to command. So yeah, he sat on the edge while everybody else did the show, and then as I woke everybody up, he actually did wake up,
Yeah.
which was good. That meant
He
he
just
wasn't
had a
dead.
restorative nap
Yeah,
with
I
some
said, "The
interesting
show's
dreams
over."
and
He says,
betting.
"What?" Yeah, I said, "Yeah, the show's over." And he looks at me, and
Yeah.
he looks at the audience, and he looks at me. I said, "Yeah, it's over."
Total
So
disbelief. I missed
yeah,
it.
you missed it,
Yeah.
and yeah, what it does when you're able to work on both arenas is it does give you a transferable set of skills
Yeah.
that it just makes you more effective at what you do on both sides.
Do
I
you
had
find that because you learn stage, do you find that you're able to take it out into the real world in other cases more easily? And it just happens organically. It's not like something you're pushing yourself to do?
Yes. Case in point, our friend Michael.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know if he's watching or not. If
Oh,
you
Michael
are,
Brody. I'll
eh,
send it to him later.
no, he knows this. So the Performing Hypnosis Summit is on. It's in full swing,
Hmm.
and things are happening. What does Shawn do? Well, Shawn is logistics, right? Like, we got to make sure everything is going. So I'm thinking 20 steps ahead of everybody else, making sure that we know, okay, this needs to happen here, that needs to happen there. Meanwhile, I'm not saying anything, and Michael picks up on this. And he 4 times he came to me. He says, "You're not saying anything, Shawn." After he goes on for like 5 minutes, about me not saying anything, and it's like, but Michael, who's controlling the conversation? And then he takes a step back. Oh, you're a wizard. It's like, well, but I mean, don't ignore this. Don't ignore the quiet people. We're listening. We're thinking. We're planning. I don't want to say we're scheming, because that's the evil side of it. That's
Yeah.
Shawn with a goatee, which nobody wants to see. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it it gives us that ability to take a step back and figure out where things are at, and yeah, even with the kids, I asked the question, how do you know you're not hypnotized already? You can ask an adult that same question, and it's the same response, like, well, wait a minute, and now I've got a moment of separation where I can regroup and then come back at them with me in control of the conversation.
Yeah. One of my favorite examples somebody gave, I want to say it was Karen Hand at one of the NATH conventions, and she was doing her opening talk, and she was saying, "Well, hypnosis is, when you drive, do you stay within the lines?" And it's like, oh, that's
No,
right.
there's alarms on the car for that now.
This is true. This is true. That's soon to be a gone skill, but but isn't it hypnosis? When you choose to park perfectly in the lines in the spot. Yeah, there was no verbal needed there.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
and of course, Saskatchewan, big wide open spaces. If I mention highway hypnosis in any way, shape, or form, 99, it's like ivory soap, 99 and 44/100, so the hands go up,
There are no
because
landmarks. There's
well, there's
nothing,
nothing,
Shawn.
right? So, and case in point, I live in Yorkton. I'm 2 and a bit hours away from Regina.
Yeah.
Driving to catch the airplane to the Performing Hypnosis Summit the night before, I leave, and because there is nothing, there's a storm that has blown in. I could not see the highway at least a dozen times,
Mm,
and when it finally cleared enough for me to see the highway, I could tell I was
yeah.
over the white line on the edge, and it's like, okay, well, we'll just course correct. But
Yeah.
you do that one too many times too many, and bad things can happen. Driving to Meadow Lake, which is in the northern part of well, the central northern part of the province,
Mhm.
because it does go quite far north, uh, with 3/4 of an inch of ice on the highway, and then semis in the ditch, and
Yeah.
jackknifed, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What should have been an hour and 45 minutes, give or take, a moose or two on the highway, or a
Mhm.
bear, um,
Yeah.
that was a 3.5 hour drive from where I used to live, North Battleford, that area. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you question yourself all the way. Why am I doing this? It's like, you know what? People need to be entertained. The show must
Yes.
go on. Why am I doing this? Oh yeah, I have a contract. Uh,
Yeah.
and that particular show was actually a stellar show,
Yeah.
with a First Nation uh, organization, and getting there was bad enough. Coming back the next day was a little better, but not much.
Yeah.
Wait,
I gotta tell you, on that drive, that was the worst part, was going through Saskatchewan and just how flat, and both the driver and I were struggling to stay awake. Like, we had to
see,
take
you should have
multiple
detoured.
pauses.
Yeah, you should have detoured and went down Highway 16. Then you would have had some hills and valleys, and a few
Everybody was
other.
like, "Just stay on the Trans-Canada, it's beautiful, you'll love it." Yeah, we did most of the trip except for that one part. It's like, "Oh god, I don't know if we're gonna make it."
Everybody that so being a IT manager, IBM used to send technicians and whatnot. We had a really good working relationship with their K-12 school division branch, and they one summer we were had a friend that was unfortunately he was about ready to pass because of cancer, but he was the original guy that had set up the relationships and helped with the very first implementations and whatnot. And he had all these friends in IBM. And I said, you know what, guys, I don't give a crap. We're going to stop early today. We are going to drive to Regina. We're going to go have supper with him one last time. And everybody was in agreement. I said, okay, we're meeting here at this time. Everybody was there. Let's go. And so we took off, and on our way to Regina, the guy who was driving with me, Jody, I'll name him because Jody refers to himself in the third person all the time. But anyway, Jody said, okay, we're not going to follow this semi anymore. And so he pulls out to pass. There is oncoming traffic. You can see it down the highway. And we like that much. And it would have been a splatter on the highway between two semis. But he says, yeah, what I like about this province is I can see everything. I said, well, that's not what everybody likes about the province. They want at least a building or a landmark somewhere. So
I would say that would have been an asset, except there was no one else on the highway. So passing wasn't even going to be an issue. It was just remote and seemed dead. There was like nothing. It's like, well, the grass is nice. It grows well.
Yep.
Oh,
It does.
goodness. So you've been working with clinical. What do you typically focus on? Who do you help in clinical?
So I've been helping, well, basically anybody who wants to come along. I don't really have a specialization. I've worked with people who've had some significant trauma, and I've also worked with people that I just want to quit smoking. I want to eat better. I want to quit gluten. I want to quit sugar. I want all the cool things that we can do, and each one of them very different scenarios. Coming out of COVID, there were people that they just had multiple things that they wanted to do all in, they wanted to squish it all into a little bitty space. I said, no, let's just take this one step at a time. Make one change, and then you'll see what else changes, and then we'll make another change. And I think people forget that if we change everything all at the same time, you may wind up in a worse situation than you are now.
Part of the fun of it is it's almost like hypnosis lottery or hypnosis roulette. I don't know how many other parts of their life are going to change. And it's always for the better. I've never seen it except for like one case with my spouse. There was one time I hypnotized him for tobacco cessation. And this is a good thing, in my opinion. But the next morning, this is a man who almost missed the birth of his child. He's not a morning person. He was up and bushy tailed at 7 a.m. And he's like, "What did you do to me?" It's like, what needed to happen happened. I'm sorry. But in every other case, there's always these like extra changes, and we just really don't know how many things. So if someone comes in with 3 things, you might knock out 2 just focusing on one. We don't know.
Yep. And again, it's what's that one thing that's supporting all the rest of everything else that they don't want. And
Yeah.
if you yank it out, you collapse everything, right? I had coming out of COVID a young lady that contacted me, and uh, she had realized she was into alcohol. She was very depressed. She just had her second child. Um, she was, smoking and doing doing everything that she could to, almost push herself over the edge. Um, and I said, "So what do you want?" She says, "I want my life back." That's a pretty wide berth. So it's like, okay, well, let's start with. And so for the next 12 weeks, we just looked at one thing, and if there was still something residual, we dealt with it. But it was a slow, methodical process until closer to the end. I think our maybe second or third last session. And I said, okay, I want you to just picture yourself in a garden. And in this garden, you'll see pathways. There's a path moving forward, there's a path looking back. I want you to turn and take a look at the path that you walked already. I want you to see all the success that you've had. She got a little bit of a smile on her face. I said, yeah, that's right. You've done that. You've conquered that. Now I want you to turn forward, and we're going to do something kind of different. I said, we're going to fly. You're going to fly up and over the path. You're going to see there's still going to be a few obstacles here and there that you're now looking down on that don't look as big as you might think they are. I said, I want you to fly to the spot where you want to be in the future. And she had it. She landed at the beach of the lake that they I don't know if they had a cabin or they wanted to buy a cabin there. She says, I can see it. I'm on the beach. I'm in the green bathing suit that I want to be in. My family is here. They're happy. Everybody's healthy. That she had it, visualized everything. I said, okay, now as we fly back, just take note of those other obstacles that, are there, because we'll deal with them. But when you land, I want you to lock that picture in. And she says, yeah, she's got it. She locked it in. Bring her out of it. Just, when you get that big smile at the end. It's like, okay, I got this. I said, yeah. And she says, yeah, by this summer, that's it. And I could tell she was motivated. I could tell she was motivated right from the beginning, because before I even discussed money, she had already forwarded money. So she was committed to the process. And yeah, she took off. Now she's uh, you know healthy, happy, still married, which is, coming out of COVID is not the case for everybody, and doing absolutely wonderfully. Your kids are probably almost as tall as I am now. So, and a lot of people will say, well, that's not hard, but
Yeah.
it's a good feeling when you can help somebody like that, right? Um,
I really like that you took the moment to have her look back and actually see all of the progress and all of the accomplishments. That was something I had to learn the hard way. I
yeah,
don't think we covered that in clinical of, hey, check in with your clients, have them look at the progress, because unless you prompt it, they're not thinking about it. They're not noticing the absence of the problem.
yeah,
They're just enjoying what's good.
yeah.
And sometimes that means that they don't realize that everything worked exactly as it needed to, and maybe even better than they were planning for themselves. So that you gave her that opportunity is like so key.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And now I not that I've settled on, but I really do use the control room of a movie theater as the metaphor for change. So you can play your life back and you can watch it. It's not going to affect who you are right now. And you can see that person, and then magically, of course, you can merge them. And I did that with a lady who was thoroughly disgusted with being in business. I mean, she'd been in business for a while. She wanted to get out and do her own thing. And you're gonna laugh when you hear this, but it's so true of so many of us. Um, I said, well, when did this issue start? And she went back, rewind. I do the sound effects. She rewound all the way to when she was 17. There was an incident at school, some bullying, and things happened, and it was internalized. And I said, well, why don't you step into the screen now, talk to your 17-year-old self, let your 17-year-old self know that you appreciate everything that she did to keep you going through there, and just give her a hug, and let her know that you appreciate it. So she did that, and I said, now just pull her inside of you And afterwards, after the session, I said, "So, what did your 17-year-old self say to you?" She says, "Thank God, I'm tired of carrying a 44-year-old woman."
Oh my goodness.
It's like
Yeah.
that. I mean, did we get it? Yeah, that's it right
Yeah.
there. It was something that was rooted back in high school that happened, and I would say that would be true of a lot of us. That something happened, we didn't
Yeah.
internalize it well, we didn't process it, and it stayed with us, right?
And it
And
can be
so
the
now,
smallest of things. It doesn't
oh,
even have to
absolutely,
be. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, and you remember all these bits and pieces, and as you go through life, you realize, well, wait a minute, no, it's kind of dumb that I thought that, and you know, oftentimes we'll be able to process it later, but when you don't, that's when your life starts skewing. So
As you were talking about that, I was thinking because we were having the conversation around technology, around how people are, referring to telephones differently, even in their nonverbal language. And I'm thinking, shoot, it's not going to be long. And if we don't change something, the whole movie theater thing is going to need to update as well. Like we're going to have to just have a projector room or something
yeah,
because post COVID,
our movie theater is on life support. It operates a few days a week. Everybody's got a large screen TV now, right? Like that's the metaphor that they understand is the bigger the screen, the better.
yeah,
Um, I could see changing the metaphor to, you're in your home, you're watching a movie on the big screen and leaving it at that
yeah.
because that's what they understand. So
Maybe instead of going further back, they go deeper in. You know,
yeah,
you go behind the projector, behind the eyes, yeah, all the way in the brain. But
yep,
that'll be interesting to see how things start to change. That is one of my favorite tools to use.
oh yeah,
And it's got a good variety of like different things we can use it for, which is always really fun. I really, really like that. Do you have other protocols that are kind of your go tos, or do you have favorite inductions that you like?
yeah. The modified control room, where you just have a dial, right? And I can give you a couple of examples with that. One is kind of funny and has a good ending. The other one is even more funny and has a good ending. So it's always nice when that happens. But the one time lady came to me and she says, "You know what? I have all these things." And again, there's always a laundry list, like that, 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 that. It's like, okay, and and drink more water. It's always kind of at the bottom of the list. So it's like, okay, well, we can step through it, but we'll do it one at a time. So we dealt with, she was having some knee pain and things of that nature. It's like, okay, well, let's see what's going on here. Not a medical diagnosis, but let's see what we can do. Um, the next weekend, she comes in for her session, and it's one of the few that actually did face to face. And so we used the dial, and it was like, okay, you're gonna have this dial, and anytime there's sugar involved, you have the opportunity to set the dial. So if you don't want to eat sugar during the day, you can dial it right down to zero. If somebody offers you a birthday cake, a piece of birthday cake and ice cream or something like that, maybe set it to two. Because you're never gonna, I mean, in our society, you are never gonna get rid of sugar. It's in absolutely everything, right?
And if you do, it will come with ire. Let me tell you.
Yep.
I had the audacity to refuse taking home birthday cake from someone's birthday. The amount of veracity that came at me for that was wild.
Yeah.
Didn't
You
expect
know,
it.
the social protocols that we have that are built around sugar, right? Of
Yeah.
all things. And so she we did the session. It was about 15 minutes because she was one of those people that could just kind of go out like a light. Especially and after the second session, it was, we already had a post hypnotic trigger set so that we didn't have to go through the whole induction again. And she went to Tim Hortons like she always does, got her coffee, went home. About an hour later, I get this panicked phone call, and it was, and I'm quoting, "What the hell did you do to me?" I said, "What do you mean?" Well, I went to Tim Hortons to get my coffee. I said, "Yeah." She says, "Well, I always ordered a double double." right? Well, I just ordered a double. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know double double, that means 2 cream, 2 sugar. And so she ordered one with 2 cream, no sugar. And I said, well, that's what you wanted, isn't it? Well, I didn't expect it to work so fast. I said,
I
well,
want
what's
to.
the dial? What's the dial set at? She says 0. I said, there you go. And now
Sometimes
she
it's
also drinks.
better when we don't have that expectation after a session. We don't think about it. You let it go, and then you surprise yourself, and that's when you're like, ah, there's my validation that this
Yep.
is real.
Yeah. And she also drinks more water now too. So, um, but yeah, so that was one. The other one was actually a much lengthier process, but uh, a lady that was actually allergic to gluten and wanted to really kind of rein it in. So we did the same thing, same dial, or lever or whatever it was that she had was her metaphor. And I always let them pick. I don't say it's this kind of a dial with this many numbers. It's it could be a digital push button, whatever, as long as you can set it. And so we had it all set. Everything was good. A couple weeks later, this would be actually almost 4 years to the day, actually 5 years to the day. She gets back from break, and they had gone to Mexico, and she grabbed me by the arm, after a meeting, and said, "I got to talk to you." It's like, okay, what's going on? She says, "I need another session." So what happened? She says, "I went off the rails. Can't get the dial back down to 0." So Mexico was good to her. Let's put it that way. But she was paying for it. So I said, okay, well, we can do that again. So no problem. Got her back under control, and since then, now she's running marathons and living life. So, uh, do I want to run marathons? No, but good for her. Um, you know, uh,
Yeah,
could I run a marathon? Well, no.
I'm
I
not.
call it,
I'm not even
I
attempting
call
that
it
anytime
walking.
soon.
Yeah, I call it walking across the schools that I,
Yeah.
because I have some fairly large schools that I mean I used to haul the big printers and big monitors and whatnot across those schools when I was much younger. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Now walking across them is sufficient with my backpack. So
Yeah. And so you've just returned not too long now from PHS, the
yes,
Performing Hypnosis Summit.
yay for the Performing Hypnosis Summit. This was actually year number 4, number 3 on the ground because of course when Jim and Grant came up with the idea, COVID was still a thing. And they knew that they weren't going to have a physical meeting yet, and so they asked me, to come along and help with the tech, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And Yeah, so in our 4th year, I think um, we're starting to hit a point now where we've done the startup piece, and now it's time to build on top of it. And from my perspective, and I know Brian and Grant would agree, we are looking for growth this year. And so for us, it would be, and I started talking about this actually a little bit last year uh, on a couple of podcasts, and definitely on the Hypnosis Hero podcast, but and Hypno News, which Grant and I do. It's not just about performing hypnosis. It's about how those skills, and we've talked about this already, how those skills can apply in what you do already. And so if you are a straight up clinical hypnotist and that's all you ever want to be, that's great. But are you ever going to give a presentation? Do you have the skill set to do that? Here you have people that are on stage, they're presenting, they're entertaining, they're um, you know, directing the choir, so to speak. They are managing everything that's going on uh, all at the same time, and these are people that have done it for years. In some cases, they're sons of hypnotists, and there's legacy that has flown down. So you have the opportunity to learn from somebody who has an in-depth knowledge about presenting and doing those things, demoing, uh, doing things like even building your social media. Um, you know, we've got some really good social media folks that do a really good job of promoting. I mean, quite honestly, and this will sound freaky to everybody, but Jim was actually probably the best at automating his social media. I mean, he posted more than I did last year.
I'm still seeing posts from Jim, and I'm wondering how he
Yeah,
did it. They always seem to be right when I need them. It's like, man, I know you're up there playing with things.
yeah, the frequency is starting to it's starting to diminish a little bit, which I mean you would expect that, but I mean
Yeah.
Brian and I still don't know how Jim automated everything.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
most of them aren't meant to go past like 60 to 90 days.
yeah,
And
and
so
and
here we
so
are years out, and it's like, man, what a
yeah.
wizard.
Well, but that was Jim, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Jim was the guy who kind of connected everybody, and so his social media surviving that long, that to me not
Yeah.
as much of a surprise. Although there were a few times where Jim came around the corner frustrated that something wasn't working, and I said, "Jim, what's going on?" He says, "Well, this, and this," and
Mhm.
push a couple of buttons, and it just boop, that's it. It works. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, how did you do that? I said, that's because I'm the captain. Like
That's all right.
technology, and everybody says that. You know what? You just need to stand here so that it works. And it's like, yeah, I can do that, but there's only one of me.
Yeah. So, in terms of podcasting, you started with Hypnosis Hero, yes?
Yeah. So, and again, Jim started, and it was meant to be kind of the Friday night whenever he didn't have a gig. He would do that, and then he brought Brian on, and it kind of worked out quite well. The two of them had a good, well, as Brian would describe it, it was being voluntold. Uh, but after a couple of times, you kind of get hooked, and then um, oh my gosh, this would be a couple of episodes. Uh, this would have been the episode that Bob Martin was on, where he almost convinced Jim to eat pineapple on pizza.
I remember that.
You
Yeah,
remember that one?
I
So they
do.
were having all kinds of tech issues, and after that, I just went to Jim and I said, "Look, like even if I'm behind the scenes, let me run this for you so that it's not a burden on you guys." And so after that, then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well we can do that. And then Brian was away, and I got to go on camera, and that went out all right. And I think one of the first episodes that I was behind the scenes was Wendy Friesen on, and I mean it was a 3.5 hour marathon. And after that, we decided, we should probably pare it back to an hour. And I don't think we ever did get only an hour. It was like an hour and a half, an hour and 45
No.
minutes, 2 hours, depending on the person. And um, it was always something different. And of course, Jim knowing everybody means
Yeah.
that you can have everybody on. And when you were on, I know you absolutely freaked out Brian.
Yeah.
Um,
Terrified
and
Jim. I've never seen him that uncomfortable, which is my favorite thing, to be honest. It's just
well,
the
it's he needs that once in a while. Uh, I
it
think
was the
the
sheer look of disbelief on his face, like, "You're serious? Really?" And it's like, "Yes, Jim." What did you think I was gonna do? I'm not trained to be a mentalist. I'm not like a judge. I'm not psych-ish. I'm psychic. Yeah.
yeah, and it was I look at it from the lens of, okay, what can I learn from this? Because that
Yeah.
I'm a career educator, right? So it's like, okay, uh, somewhere there has to be some kind of an explanation to explain this, and until I find it, we'll treat it as a, I'm analyzing all the time. Like that's what I do. That's who I am. Like,
You're still skeptical. That's okay.
no, didn't say that. What I said was I just want the explanation.
Yeah.
show me how the magic works so that I can understand it.
Are you game
And
for it?
you know what? We'll save that for when you come on Hypnosis Hero.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute. I think I'm heading in a completely different direction, which is why I haven't come back sooner. But for me, it is a process of self hypnosis. And that's what most mediums, most spirit communicators, and psychics don't even realize they're doing. It's just a natural thing that they're going into, and they haven't labeled it. They don't have the linguistics around what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes that makes sense because um, when you hit a different frequency, you can access different things.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of our colleagues are probably aware of dreaming of Jim. That's very real. And the things he says in the dreams are very much Jim, and that's how you know.
Yes, and I'm glad I haven't dreamt of Jim.
I've had a few. A few
I
of the colleagues have. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what he'd say, and it probably wouldn't bear repeating on on an actual.
He's still very much himself.
Oh yes, yeah, and Jim could be Jim.
Yeah. He loves to turn up in Nora Nopal's office, and he continually knocks things over, and it's just a very active presence over there. But that is what it is. It's just shifting into that different state of mind. And once we know that and understand that, and if you have the understanding of mediumship, then it's all just fun and cake and experience. Yeah.
Nice.
And I think what you guys didn't count on was when you started that podcast, the community that would develop around it. You've got now several year friendships that are at ultimate depth. You guys know each other really well. It's a strong, connected community.
Well, that's the word I would associate most with Jim, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to build communities because he knew that he knew what all good conference organizers, entrepreneurs, guys with kind of the ear to the ground. He knew what everybody should know, which is you're not going to get there yourself.
Yeah.
And if you do, it's not going to be as big as it could be with everybody else.
Yeah.
And so building that community, and you're right. I mean, the first time I actually met Brian was at the Performing Hypnosis Summit. We talked
Second
together.
year. Yeah.
Second year, yeah. So we'd known each other for more than a year. Yeah. And our number one fan from the UK, not Grant,
Becca.
but Becca made the trek over this year. So we had an opportunity to meet her, and just to settle the bet that Brian was talking about. Becky is taller because she can wear platform shoes.
Way to go, Becky. Yeah. As someone who has a couple of pairs of platforms still in the back of my closet, I support that thoroughly.
I mean, the last time I wore anything like that would have been in university. So back in university days, of course,
like photos, my friend, or it never happened.
Unfortunately, I can paint a picture in your mind. How about that? So, so the college that I went to, again, my aunt was there. Was St. Thomas Collegiate, and they're not collegiate, St. Thomas College, STM, St. Thomas More College. Lots of Toms. Anyway,
I went to St. Thomas More Elementary School.
I also went to STC, St. Thomas College, which is St. Thomas Collegiate, which closed down, and then they opened John Paul II Collegiate. And anyway, long story short, I'm in university as my second year, and there were a bunch of us that had gotten into the arts area, and it was Halloween. And so I will say this, the next time I wear tights, I will make sure to shave my legs first. But I dressed up like a character right out of Shakespeare. The only thing I was missing was the skull to say, "Alas, poor Yorick." I knew him well. Walked through campus with a real sword attached to my waist. Got ovations, as there's a big area at the U of S that we call the bowl, which is really where all the buildings are around,
Yeah.
or at least most of them. And as you're walking through, it's a free for all. There's 20,000 people there at any given time, and they're all loving the fact that I'm dressed up for Halloween and real stuff. And you get to class, and is that a real sword? Yep. Show everybody to tap it on the desk. Yeah, a real sword. Okay. Put it back. Not one security guard said anything about anything.
No.
If that was today, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have made 10 steps onto campus,
No.
and security would be all over the place, right?
Yeah.
It's a different world that we live in now.
Sure
But
is.
so now that you got the picture, they were red tights, the blue ruffle, like it was real Shakespeare at its best.
Well, what a time to be alive.
Can't do that anymore.
Those are probably the few things you can get away with your aunt on campus. Thankfully, I didn't have a family member attend when I went to college.
Yeah, it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be,
My
but
stupid
yeah.
mistakes were my own. As the way I prefer it. But you've got some incredible stuff coming up. Tell me a little bit about Hypno News, though. We haven't really touched on that one.
Well, there is a lot of stuff that goes on in the world of hypnosis. There are more conferences now than there ever have been.
Yeah.
There are new discoveries being made, scientific ones, the real science,
Yeah.
electrodes and the whole 9 yards. Uh, there's always something going on, and Dan gets a good chunk of it with the magazine, uh, which I'll give a shout out to Dan
Yeah.
for the magazine, because when you're in print, that's a permanent record. These things here, unless we download them and we have a way to access them forever, they will eventually go away. But if you're in print, as long as that book survives or that magazine survives, it's there. It's kind of like a permanent record. But with the news, um, the one thing I will say is, when Grant and I get together, or in some cases when Brian and I get together to do the news, we're looking at it from the lens of who's got something interesting going on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, what is it that we can help promote? And it goes worldwide now because, like I said, there's a conference this year that's opening up in LA. There's one in Portugal this year. I think Australia is close to having theirs if they haven't had it already. The world of hypnosis is really the world of hypnosis. A lot of us will know HypnoThoughts, of course, as being the absolute largest of the events. And when you look at the different niche conferences that are out there, there is really only the Performing Hypnosis Summit for performers. There's a little bit of that happens at Heartland. Dan's got Michigan. Laurie has LA, as an up and coming. I know that at one point, Jim and Anthony were going to have the Northwest. I think that's, and now we've got Canada has a conference as well. Last year was its first kind of rebirth after COVID. Uh, so there's a lot going on. So how do you make sense of all of that and pick which one you want to go to? I mean, I've said to a lot of people, the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference, would I like to go? Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
Would I like to go to the UK Hypnosis Convention? Absolutely, I would. And then I take a detour north to visit the ancestors in Scotland. Um,
There's
you
one
know,
in New Zealand. I might go geek out and have a Lord of the Rings moment.
well, Hobbiton is there.
Yeah.
If anybody ever sees the Graham Norton clip of Robin Williams was actually on that episode too, of him and uh, uh, Frodo arguing.
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, there we go.
Yeah.
Arguing about whether or not Hobbiton was a real place.
Oh,
And
goodness.
here's another thing. So they spent, and this is gonna skew and tilt some people's heads. They spent 14 to 18 years of their lives filming those three films, and then you tack on another few years for The Hobbit, there and back again. For some of them, like um, trying to think of who other than Gandalf was the crossover, but I'm
Bilbo,
sure there were a couple.
Bilbo
Bilbo,
Baggins.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it was a
The
different
elves.
different different actor, yeah.
Yeah.
But long story short, that's a long time to make a series of movies.
And not be fully funded because they didn't get a return on investment for a long time.
And now you can do that same sort of thing with AI in probably the space of a year.
It's not the same.
But it's getting closer, and it's
Yeah.
getting closer. Every time somebody puts up a new Sora video, it's getting closer, and that will be the reality that our people grow up with going forward.
The thing I like about Hypno News, though, is that you guys give a heads up before the things are coming. So I find that I get a little bit of notice, and then it's like I can make some informed decisions. It's not, oh, hey, this happened, you missed it already kind of a situation.
Well,
So
and
I appreciate that.
yeah, and I'll shout out this as well, that if you do have something that's interesting that's going on, even if it's just a training opportunity, let us know at Hypno News, because we will make sure that gets out there. There's a lot of people, and again, I'll circle back to micro learning. Do you have to attend a conference to learn from other people? No. Do you want to attend a conference? Absolutely, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if somebody has a smaller certificate course that's targeted at something that maybe you're not so good at, or that you need to refresh, or that you have an interest in, take it. Do your research. Don't just because they say they've got it. Do your due diligence. But if it's a legitimate course that somebody's going to teach, that has the skills and the receipts, that I've done this for a while, and this is what I know that works, take it, because that just helps you improve. That just helps you get better.
Yeah. I
Um,
think there is really something to that because I don't know about you, but growing up, anytime I took a class, my mom would be like, oh, you're going to go out and do this thing. And it's like, well, not necessarily. Yes, I became a 200-hour yoga instructor. Do I intend on teaching yoga? No, I use the breath work for my trauma clients. Like it's
yeah,
not even, we might not apply it the way that we think it is. And I think that's the fun thing when we're in the realms of hypnosis is how much integration can happen and how differently things can be used for somebody's benefit.
yeah. So when I started, my very first job was inputting on the old machines that still had the monochrome green screen. You'll remember those. My dad had a friend who had the very first portable computer that was probably like, it was a box. You snap the keyboard on. You had to park the hard drive, or they had to park the hard drive, put something in to protect the floppy drive, and it weighed like 85 pounds, but it was the first portable computer. The screen was like that big. Ours was a little bit bigger. It was a 12 or 13-inch screen, but it was the very first machine that had ACPAC on it. So I was inputting, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and you had no backup and no visual anything. You just had to remember where you were. So I don't know how many batches I ruined, but I mean, I'm sure there were a few. I was 14 at the time.
Yeah.
15, got a job at McDonald's, and that was, I call it my first career, because when I left McDonald's was when I actually got my first full-time teaching contract. 10 years later, give or take. 10, 11, yeah, 11 and a half, 12 years later. So those skills, though, that I learned at McDonald's, moving up from being, the only guy left, and winning the Rookie of the Year award, because I was the only guy left, or Rookie of the Month, or whatever it was, award, all the way through to being a manager and being, the Swiss Army knife, so to speak, of what do you need? I can, fill in and do those things. Served me well. Those were skills I carried through. I built my entire tech department around the same. We're here to serve, and this is how we're going to do it. And they still do that today.
I've
That
heard that before from other people who've worked at McDonald's, but always the ones in Canada. I don't think that's an accident.
well, it's about systems, and I yeah, uh, we had an external consultant, if you will, who pulled me back one day and he says, "What do you see?" And I said, "Well, I see this, I see this, I see this, I see this." He says, "No, it's systems." He says, "What are you selling?" Well, I said, "Well, take a look at the menu board. It's there." He said, "No, no, it's meat and potatoes. If you have enough meat and potatoes, everything works. When you don't, you don't." And he broke the system down to the point that it was like, okay, this is what you're doing, and this is what you're doing, and that's it. Those two things. If you get those two things right, everything else works. And he was absolutely right. And that was that was really my first look at system thinking, which again has carried through all the way through. How do we build and design a system that people can use and make good use of it? And it's not just that they can use it. How do we train our teachers to use the technology efficiently and effectively, so that when they're standing in front of the students, because nobody wants to be the idiot in the room, but oftentimes teachers, they will say, I don't feel like I know the technology enough, or I understand it enough to sit in front of the room. Fortunately, the kids know it quite well. And I've often had it where I've just convinced the teachers to just say, you know what, let's do this instead,
Mm-hmm.
and let the kids run it, and the kids do a brilliant job of it. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
we don't always need to be the center of the room, but
Mm-hmm.
you still need to be that guy standing off in the corner, not saying anything, in
Mm.
control of the conversation.
Fair enough. Speaking of systems, you've built a protocol, and it's the Empower protocol. I'm
Yeah,
wondering if you could tell us a bit about that.
I could if I could remember the acronym. Give me just a second. I'll bring it up here. It is it's been built. It is something that I've there we go. It's something that I've been working at steadily for the last couple of years, and really, again, what do we do as hypnotists? We're
Yeah.
here to help people change. So just um, why not just say, okay, this is the change. It doesn't matter what the change is. It's the process, right? And so in that process, it's, what do we want to do? How do we want to do it? What are the obstacles that we have? How are we going to overcome them? It's change management is what it is. Um, and so there we go. AI is my friend. What can I say? I have 7,000 options for what empower means, but it was this one here. Um, yeah, it was the very first one, actually. It was mindset, purpose, ownership, willpower, emotion, and resilience. So when you think about it, what do we do when we change? So we're going to deal with the mindset first, right? As the mindset starts taking shape, we look at applying it to the purpose that they're there for. Then they take ownership over the change. Their willpower gets the boost from hypnosis. And, we know willpower on its own is not the thing we want to rely on. But when it's backed by hypnotic protocols and purpose, now it has some legs. We have to deal with the emotions around that, because and you mentioned it before. When we make a change, we have no idea what else is going to change. The young lady that I worked with coming out of COVID, I said to her, I said, you start making these changes, you're gonna notice people are gonna react differently to you. Are you okay with that? And she said, I just don't want to lose my family. That was it. So it's like, okay, well, like she had some knowledge that as I do these things, people are you know,
Yep.
going to behave differently. You think about the alcoholic that goes to the bar all the time and then all of a sudden disappears because they've decided to go dry and be sober. Um,
Yeah.
what happens to the people that he left behind? Well, they find him one day and they ridicule him for like, what the hell? Why'd you leave us? Right. So those emotions are there and they're real, or they're perceived to be real. And so
Yeah.
they need to be regulated.
Yeah.
You know,
In the flip side of things, when I'm looking at trauma, a lot of my people need to develop assertiveness. They need to begin to build boundaries. They need to have clear communication. And the problem is, as they build that, they're going to ruffle feathers of people who've been benefiting from them not having those things. And so that is often something I will say of, you know what, this is an unfortunate, sometimes painful sign of growth is when those people start to drop off. You're
yeah,
succeeding.
yeah. Well, and I joked about this with students in middle years, and the reason that I got stuck teaching middle years, other than I could still look most of them in the eye, come back in grade 10 and they
You
like
did it.
cowards. I was like, what the hell, you know? Um,
Oh,
but 7, 8, 9, they're still young enough that you can have fun with them. But the
yeah,
one thing I always say to the grade 9s, I said, look, you're going into high school.
yeah,
The friends that you have now may not necessarily be the friends that you have when you come out of high school. Oh, that'll never happen. And I've seen it over and over and over
yeah,
again. What happens? Well, somebody makes a different decision, and all of a sudden the
mhm,
friendship splits, right? Um,
yeah.
or there's a boy or a girl involved, and that also drives wedges in friendships and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
The high school confidential, as we call it. Uh,
Somebody has a growth spurt, and all of a sudden they're on the basketball team when before they might have been, in the computer lab.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so what happens? Well,
Mhm.
something changed, and I don't want to say make it appear blunt, but the sooner you get used to change the better. But it is really the only constant in the universe is that things change, at least from our human perspective as we see it now, right? And then the last one is resilience. How do we build this so that you don't have to? So I don't want you to come back and see me. I'll work with you again, but if I give you the tools, if I give you the hammer, you should be able to hit the nail into the wall and do this yourself. But there are some people that are just more comfortable coming back and saying, you did this and then and now I want that. And so you can take this and you can apply it to pretty much any change management that a person wants to do. So now, do I need to specialize in 25 different things? No, it's this is the protocol. This will help you do this, and this. And oh, by the way, do you know how to set a goal? Because a lot of people don't. And said, okay, well, I've got a course for that too. That's coming fairly quickly here. So, and the method that I use is not the SMART method, because SMART is good for corporate. It's not good for personal. There's a different, and you can see that too. People can be really successful in corporate and not so successful personally. Um, there's a different methodology, a different thinking, a different way to behave, a different way to interact when you are uh, in your personal life than in your professional life. And people will say, "Well, just show up authentically and be." You don't want me showing up authentically because if I show up authentically, you're not going to like the result. Because when you make a mistake, I will tell you.
Mhm.
You want me to be professional about it. You want me to show up professionally, and that's we talk about these masks that people wear. Sometimes they're not masks; they're just the professional veneer that we've put on so that we can navigate where we need to be. Um, you want me to be authentic? You're an idiot, you know. And here's
Yeah.
why, and I'll give you 10
Mhm.
reasons. Uh, because that's what I do. I solve problems,
Mhm.
and if I see a problem and you're not solving it, I can solve it. But in solving it, we may crack a few eggs.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you may not like the outcome, even though the problem is solved,
Yeah.
because it could mean that you're not part of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, or I can be professional and work with people and understand that they have their own things going on, and we will work together to achieve the goal. Right?
Yeah. I think when it comes to SMART goals, one of the things they miss is relational framing. And so much of what we do is relationship involved.
Yeah. Yeah. I
When you're
use
making those
the
goals, you don't think about who is going to possibly sabotage my success as I'm working towards this, but I promise you there probably will be. And it's not that they want to, they're not even looking at it in that way.
yeah I look at it this way. On a personal scale, we all have these things that we wish for.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
use the whoop method. So wish, outcome, what is it that we really need to do to get the wish that we want? What are the obstacles? And then what's the plan? How are we going to navigate
Yeah.
those obstacles?
I
Like
like that because a lot of people
it's
will hit obstacles and then they think, uh oh, I failed, and they give up.
yeah, that
Yeah.
there you go. That's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
And what I like about being able to take somebody and fly them over the obstacles, they really do see in their mind just how small that obstacle really is. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like looking down. Good example. So the first time when I went to Hypnothoughts in 2022, or yeah, I think it was 2022. It was the last time it was at the Orleans. Jim was there, of course. So I got the badass hypnotist sticker and whatnot for going out and doing street hypnosis with him in
That's
120
my
degree
only
heat.
regret is that I didn't go do that with Jim, and I had wanted to, and I didn't do it. That's my only. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was hot.
Well, it's Vegas, and it's yeah. No, I
Yeah,
would I would do that elsewhere.
yeah. It was Vegas and it's hot, and
Yeah.
especially in the summer. In the winter, not so much. I
Hmm.
mean, the guys that went out to do street hypnosis at PHS had a good time. So as far as I
Yeah.
know,
One
but
of these years, I will have to wait until Grant is going for PHS and then jump into that group.
well, you come to PHS and we'll make sure at least one of us goes with you.
Yeah.
It is a really tight knit community, but we do want to expand it for sure. And the plan, which is the last part, is you know it gives you a lot more flexibility. And the one thing, again, you mentioned it. I hit an obstacle, I failed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I blame that on education, because we've been told so many times that we failed
Mm.
because we did something wrong.
Do you think it's like
And
operant conditioning every time someone did a quiz and they get back an F and then they're just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
or you didn't follow this rule at this time, and did.
Uh,
Um, and what that does, because education was created to replicate
yeah.
itself, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Well,
idea of
it's not
K-12
solution
education is to
focused.
send people to university.
Yeah.
That's their that
Yeah.
was their ultimate goal. Now it's kind of expanded, but
Yeah.
the school systems that still think that way, like we're here to send you to university, it's not.
Mhm.
You're not doing a good thing for all. You're not
Yeah.
being inclusive of all students, because everybody has a different path to walk. But
Yeah.
inside of all of that, what the common denominator often is that, instead of saying that a student is wrong, or that they've failed, or that they've done these things, there's a different way to phrase it. Let's
Yeah.
think about it this way. Instead of saying, you're way off base, blah blah blah, whatever it is. And I learned that lesson in my internship. I made the mistake of making a what I thought was a funny joke, and it
Mm.
wasn't a funny joke. And yeah,
Oh. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, it does happen, and that's I didn't fail. I learned.
Yeah. And that's the resilience piece as well from your other protocol of having to adjust of what do you do when, you set a goal and you made an oversight, you didn't consider what the obstacles were. It's like, oh, okay, so how do we, shift gear?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are all coming to my website very shortly, and we'll get going on those. I've
Fantastic.
I have a show coming up here next week on the 27th. So if you are in the Yorkton area and you want to attend a show, it's a double header. It is myself and a friend of mine, Citric James, and we are combining our shows together for the food bank, and we are hoping that people will come out and not just have a lot of fun with us, but also support the food bank.
That's a really great cause. Yeah.
Well, when we were talking about it, because we were debating when we wanted to do this, and it's like, well, I'm sure by now the food bank is probably running low on food. Everybody gets out at Christmas time and yeah, support the food bank, and it is for us here at least. It's an offshoot of the Salvation Army, so the kettles are out and so on and so forth. But what do you do after Christmas when things start running dry and there's still a lineup of people that you need to feed, right? So we chose February as kind of a, hey, let's work on replenishing those shelves.
Yeah, you can only eat pasta so many times.
This is true, and it doesn't always go well when you do. I still remember university, the 27-cent box, if you could afford it. The 27-cent box of mac and cheese was the white cheese. And it was
Yes.
20, it was 20,
It wasn't 27 cents for me, but it's like probably $1. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could also get the 24-cent box of craft dinner, KD, as we call it here in Canada.
Well, good old KD. I had friends with KD tattoos. It's a Canadian staple.
Yep, it is. 100%.
Are you with ketchup or without ketchup?
Without. I have cousins that apparently now they were born exactly 1 year apart, almost to the hour. So they have the same birthday, but they both absolutely had to have ketchup on everything. Eggs. Yeah, I know.
No, not eggs. No.
Macaroni, you name it, spaghetti, just everything had to have ketchup. Come to find out that there's an actual physical condition that causes people to want that ketchup. I can't remember what it is.
Really interesting.
But yeah, there is an actual underlying condition where people who have that craving and that
is it lycopene, the thing that they're seeking, the lycopene?
Probably, yeah.
It's like the micronutrient or something that it's
as Jim would say, it's junkyard taste, but junkyard dog taste buds, but
that's right. That's right.
To me, it's not quite as bad as pineapple on pizza, but yeah, it comes pretty close.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I knew we were both Canadian, but I didn't think we'd be talking about the finer points of Canadian culture, such as craft dinner and ketchup.
Well, you gotta go where quality is, right?
Not anymore. I'm keto.
Like,
no, I'm missing out.
Between cheesies and I used to when Lisa would come up and do a show in Canada somewhere, or Alan, he'd pick up cheesies, right? And in Canada, cheesies is the staple. I mean, I lived on that for my second year of university. Cheesies and Mountain Dew.
Dill pickle chips were my favorite as a kid, and Smarties.
We had a teacher that we used to call Mr. Pickle because he could be bribed with dill pickle chips. We had okay, we do have time for one more story.
Yeah.
So, Mr. W. I'm not sure if he's still with us or not, but so in North Battleford, I went to a Catholic elementary school, St. Mary's. There was a Mr. Welter and a Mrs. Welter. They weren't married. Brother and sister-in-law. Moved into Battleford. They wouldn't let me go to the Catholic school there. So I went to the public school. There was another Mr. Welter. It's like, okay, find out. Yes, Mr. Welter and Mrs. Welter. Yes, those two are the two that are married. They're brothers. It's like, okay, totally different guys. Like the older one, Anton, looked totally different than Merv. Anyway, long story short, Merv is Mr. Pickle. Everybody loved him. He was just jovial guy, kind of like Dan, and Jim. You combine them, and he was also the math teacher, right? So when I get into grade 8, I'm expecting him to be the homeroom teacher that I'm going to get. Turns out he got moved to a different room, so I was mad about that. But that was the first year that they did Kangaroo Court, which was about a month and a half long, and the teachers were the sheriffs. And anytime they caught you doing something bad, you'd get a summons, and the class with the least amount of summons would get a pizza party. Cool. 802 won that year. That was my class. But when we get to court, who's the judge? It's Merv. And he says, okay, calls the next case, reads the summons, running in the hallway, coming up, and okay, you're going to walk the hot coals, which, I mean, it was oatmeal or something like that. Yeah, no problem. Oh, you're going, next one. Oh, you're going to jail. Well, it was a crib turned upside down, was going to be the jail. And the kid had a box of the old Dutch dill pickle chips and presented it as a bribe to the judge.
His
So
defense.
he had his sentence commuted. The next kid goes up there. He's only got a small bag of Hostess. Chips. He got double sentenced. And he lost the chips. So yeah, after that, he was always called Mr. Pickles. So, but you have teachers that have those quirks. Those are the teachers that you remember, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I had Mrs. Groves in grade 5, and her whole classroom was run on a system, and it was pick of the litter. It was all about dogs, and then you wanted to know, like, you didn't want to be the runt, right? So, yeah.
Yep.
I'll always remember her. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for spending the time with me, for explaining your protocol and your upcoming stuff. And hopefully I get to see you again soon. And if not, I'll catch you on Hypno News or Hypnosis Hero.
Yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to mention?
No, just that Hypno News is weekly on Thursdays. Grant and I we're trying to find a proper time to do this. We know time is going to change on everybody here in the next month. And at least on this side of the pond, they change a little bit later on that side of the pond. So we'll figure it out. But hopefully by the end of March, we've got a set time for Hypno News. And Hypnosis Hero happens every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So our next one is coming up next week. And yes, next week. Next week's going to be a busy week. I got that, and then a Hypno News, and then a show. It's going to be
yeah. All while still preparing PHS for next year.
Yeah, that is on the go, and we are getting close to announcing our dates and making sure that we have speaker submissions ready to go. So if you are thinking about attending or presenting, keep your ears open, because that will be coming up very quickly.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for being a guest today. And Soulful Seekers, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay well, but most of all, stay inspired. Yep. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Do not leave, Captain, because as I press stop, we got